First, let's go to some more examples of how this is playing out. This irreligiosity, if you like, is playing out in our society. The new Senate President, Sue Lines, wants to end the tradition of saying the Lord's Prayer at the start of Senate proceedings. Now, Stephen, I don't know about you, but this makes me deeply uneasy. Why does it make me uneasy? What are we missing?
Well, it could be the case that it kind of makes me a bit uneasy as well, because it doesn't seem in any way to be a kind of organic sort of fading away of the Lord's Prayer. It's not something that seems to be demanded at a popular level. It's something that's sort of going to be imposed, probably for a fairly ideological reason. And no doubt there will be an attempt to replace it with something that, at best won't be any more representative for Australians than the Lord's Prayer. At worst, might be actually even less representative. So I think it's probably driven to a large extent by a kind of ideological secularism, which again, out of this cultural revolution of the 1960s, just sees Christianity as something that is regressive and not progressive, and something that as much as possible should be relegated out of the public and increasingly into a private sphere which we might talk about later seems to be getting narrower and narrower.
Well, let's go to another example of that, leading on from what you say, that people are trying to portray it as old-fashioned. You know, you're a dinosaur if you believe these things. And that's the recent furore at Manly Sea Eagles, where they decided to have a rainbow round game and have rainbow, this is a well-known story, rainbow jerseys, and 7 members of the team said they couldn't wear these for religious reasons, and it turned out that they were Christians. It seems to me this whole episode, if the goal was to exclude, marginalise and indeed humiliate 7 Christians who happened to play for Manly, they did a very good job. But if the goal was really to bring everybody together in a display of unity and inclusivity, then it was an absolute failure. How do you read it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I basically read it as a continuation of this cultural revolution which begins in the 1960s, whose basic purpose is to erase the vestiges of Christian belief, Christian morality from society. It's something that was that's very much pursued by intellectuals throughout the 20th century, who got into universities to sort of bring about a kind of left-wing anti-Christian agenda, and they went on to produce teachers, other academics, people in the media, cultural forming elites. And this is sort of a continuation of that. And it's absolutely about, in a sense, creating uniformity, not diversity. It's part of this great awakening that we're sort of living through right now. I mean, if the Manly Sea Eagles really cared about being inclusive, then you would just ask players not to discriminate against LGBT players. But that's not what they've asked them to do. They've actually asked them to openly celebrate and appraise LGBT rights, which of course is something that just goes against the players' traditional sort of biblical Christianity. And that's irrelevant to this LGBT movement, because it's really not about rights. It's really not about inclusivity. It's about replacing a Christian heritage with a new way of living, a new way of thinking, which we call today sort of wokeness. But again, it all comes from that 1960s cultural revolution, which is still rolling on to this day.